Can't tell if this is on. Hello? Hello? Okay, we're late now, so let's start. Hi, welcome to the Writer's Block panel. I'm Deanna, I'm your presider. Oh yeah.
Hey, so we'll turn that up in a second, but what we really need from everybody, and this will help sound bleed a lot because we'll stop having to increase the volume levels, is if everyone can try their very best to speak closely in the microphone like I am. Not like this, but like this. That would really, really help a lot. Okay, thanks.
Hello. Is this good? Good? Okay. Hi, welcome to the Writer's Block panel. I'm Deanna, your presider, and Bill Benson is our lovely hash mod for this panel. I'm going to try to introduce everyone in the best way that I can, but I'm sure they will elaborate when they begin their panel. So first we have Megan Bigelow. She is currently studying Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies at the CUNY Graduate Center. She received her BFA from photography, her BFA in photography from the Massachusetts College of Art in Boston. And her abstract is Hello World, Scribblings from the Top/All Collective. Next we have Paul Soalis. He is a New York-based artist and designer, currently working at New Ink at the New Museum across the street, and he teaches at the Rhode Island School of Design. Dr. Zara Didden is a lecturer in modern and contemporary literature at the School of English, Drama, and American and Canadian Studies at the University of Birmingham. And Milena Popova is a PhD researcher at the Digital Cultures Research Center at the University of West England in Bristol. So, yeah, for everyone watching the live stream, you can tune in with our hashtag CTW15, hashtag B2, to specifically tweet at our panel. And forgetting anything? Oh yes, again, just a reminder to show silent enthusiasm as to not disrupt the panel across. So spirit fingers and whatnot. I don't know. You can get creative. So every presentation is going to be around 15 minutes. I'm going to try to keep time the best I can. Hopefully, I'll do an okay job with that. And then, of course, questions at the end. So let's begin. And Megan is going to go first. And of course, tweet at us, me, anyone, if you have questions, and we'll address them at the end. Thanks.
Thank you for that great introduction. Hi everybody. My presentation is called Hello World, Scribblings from the Top/All Collective. And I conceived of this project as a remix between analog and digital textual interfaces, as thought through two separate yet imbricating collective iterations of our lexicon, paper scribblings and Twitter's top and all search function. So the way that I found the paper scribblings was I went around to various stationery stores throughout Manhattan, and I collected the pieces of paper that are provided for people to test pens and markers on. And I was really interested in what people write on those pieces of paper and what comes to mind when they're given a pen and kind of given free rein to just write whatever they want. And how that also relates to thinking of Twitter as another collective iteration of our lexicon and how it's shared. So I gathered those pieces of paper and scanned them and started to see phrases that jumped out, like "you are beautiful," "ideas, ideas, ideas," "rin, tin, tin," and "what if." And the very first image I made showed a lot of I collected all the different cards that said hello on it and just put them together and made one scanned image from that. So this project has both an artistic component and also a spoken component as well. So this is the first image that I made from that. And the second image, this one you can see people are writing things like Rin Tin Tin and Oh Hello and other just doodlings and symbols and stuff like that. So I took some of these phrases and ran them through the top and all search function on Twitter, and I was interested in the different power relations that would emerge from this and how tweets are sorted into top tweets and all tweets and what that might say about how power is reinforced and reiterated through language itself. And I was also interested in what sort of anonymous collective sociality was produced by these scribblings on the paper and the set of relations themselves that were returned in the search function. So that's my basic methodology. Here is an image that I made with a very plain piece of paper that just said "You are beautiful" on it. And I wanted to keep it very simple for this one. And this is one of the first sets of tweets that was returned when you put "You are beautiful" into the search function. And the next thing that I did with this project was to take the text from the 10 tweets that were returned within that search function and make a word cloud out of it. And for those of you that are not familiar with the word cloud, it basically takes the number of times that a word is repeated within a text and graphically makes it smaller or larger, depending on the number of times. So you can actually get a visual representation of the word frequency of something like beautiful or one or just or must. So it's another way to think visually about language and the lexicon itself. So this is a screen cap from the top tweets for "You are beautiful." And then this is the word cloud that resulted from that. So you can see obviously beautiful is highlighted quite a bit. And also hate, love, just hungry, unstoppable. So just thinking through how something that somebody had written on a piece of paper could end up in Twitter and how those two sets of linguistic utterances relate to each other through both analog and digital technologies. So this is the word cloud for "You are beautiful" for the top tweets. And again, I was also interested in how these different results and their affective word cloud portraits serve to reinforce already dominant linguistic norms of power representation and the hegemony of the lexicon through the algorithmic thinking that determines which tweets are top and which tweets are all. And so these are some of the results for the all tweets. As you can see on the top tweet, there are some stereotypical representations of what can instantly make a girl smile. So you can see how power and universalizing concepts like that are getting reiterated through a tweet like that. And so this is just a screen cap of the all tweets as well. And this is another screen cap of it. And one thing that I also thought was interesting in the all tweets is that there are accounts that just tweet basically the same tweet over and over again at Normani Corday, like "You're my world, I love you so much, you're beautiful, you're my Beyonce, please follow me." So I think it was 4 out of the 10 tweets for the all results for "You are beautiful" were basically iterations of those tweets from different random accounts like that. So as a result, the word cloud for the "You are beautiful" all tweets had beautiful very large, but also Beyonce and Normani. So you can see kind of how different things are getting iterated and flowing through the lexicon itself. And the final one that I did was I was really interested in these 2 pieces of paper, which put together the phrases that jumped out to me are "what if" and "ideas, ideas, ideas." And I really liked those 2 considerations in relation to each other, to think about possibility and potentiality and just what people think about when they say "what if" or "what is an idea" or "ideas." So then I ran these through the search function as well. And the top "what if" was an article discussing what if Martin Luther King's letter from Birmingham City Jail had been a Facebook post and discussed in relation to an Alabama law that makes it a crime to help state inmates post to social media. So that was especially interesting in terms of thinking about access to discourse and the proliferation of thought and how it's restricted and striated basically controlled, which is also, when you're thinking about the top all search function itself, it's also a way of distributing norms of power and access to representation and things like that. So that was especially noteworthy to see that that is actually the top what if tweet. And the word cloud for this one had a significant number of iterations of the word one, and that was interesting and noteworthy to me because this project is about thinking through collective utterances and what we share when we share language with each other. So it was kind of pleasing to me to see that the word one was the most represented word in there, and then all these other words that were floating around in relation to the word one itself. So those are the top for what if. And then the all tweets for what if were kind of random musings, like what if you quit downing inline skaters, and people's random thoughts like that. What if major brand logos were hand lettered? So it was it was interesting to me to see like what people muse about, like what if that happens, and so that ends up becoming part of not only discussion between friends, but obviously Twitter is very public, so people reading strangers just discussions like what if you just quit doing that. So I was interested in, again, how that relates to just the random things that people will scribble on the pads of paper when they are given a pen and a blank piece of paper. So those are some of the all tweets for that. And then the word cloud for this one, just and much appeared quite a lot. And then other words were pursued, coalition, teasers, hacked, game. So just thinking about your experience, like looking at a word cloud like this, and what kind of relationships you have with those words, and how each one of us uses language in a different way, but also in a collective way. So thinking through visually what sort of representations making an image like this does in terms of developing language as a social relational act as well was one of my goals for this project. And the final thing that I'd really like to touch upon in this project is to just think through sense itself as a relational phenomena, and through language. Language itself is obviously a relational phenomena, and what sort of differential sensory relations that can be produced through experiencing language while looking at something like a word cloud versus a scan of a piece of paper that a stranger wrote on in a stationery store, and how Twitter's algorithmic search function itself distributes sense in different ways. So the sense that you get when you look at a top thing, at a top series of tweets is, to my mind, very different than the sense you would get from looking at an all set of tweets. And again, how power relations and sociality are reproduced algorithmically through Twitter's search function. And finally, again, just thinking through the critique of representation itself, and through the image itself, and how these different forms of sense-making and being in relation with others imbricate, inform, and further our collective sense of meanings and affects, visual, linguistic, interpersonal, and more. So I usually like to leave my projects with more questions than really answers, so these are the questions that I would leave you with in thinking about these different things as they relate to each other. So, thank you.
I argue that individuals should be informed about the concerns and other qualified made to appreciate what it is.
Hi everybody, just 1 second.
And then residents who know the information about them access to human intentional purpose are empowered with that feedback to adjust their behavior and interactions according to their own private needs. So this is the typical feedback that's required to control the practice. And then briefly, I asked people
Hi. I'm Paul Sulevis,
only one
and
interpreted it to mean what I meant.
2 years ago I was here at, not here, but I was at Theorizing the Web at CUNY Graduate Center. Is the volume okay? And I brought together a small collection of works at that time by artists and poets who make books and other printout matter from the web. And I called it Library of the Printed Web. It was housed in a wooden crate that I built for the event, and I pushed it up Fifth Avenue on wheels to the CUNY Graduate Center and parked the collection on a table in the lobby. And the response to the project, to this pop-up installation, was really great. And it was clear to me that the project needed to have a bigger life beyond that event. And since then, in the last 2 years, besides growing the physical archive itself, I've tried to develop and start a conversation around this type of work and to engage artists and scholars around an evolving web-to-print practice in the post-digital print space. I started by defining some of the tactics that I saw being used, actions like grabbing, scraping, hunting, and performing. Alessandro Ludovico has written about this and has characterized this new way of working as a transduction between media. In printed web works, he says, mixing, blending, and embedding digital processes into traditional print. That this indifferent difference is one way to characterize this web-to-print space. In this infra-thin condition, we vibrate between difference and sameness. We recognize both without collapsing into either. We hover in a state between states. I think that this is one of the reasons why these printed web works are so satisfying. I simultaneously feel traces of the network, something ephemeral and slippery in these works, while holding the material thingness of its output in my hand. The infra-thin condition surrounds us. Kino Shiro writes that the web is spilling over into other dimensions, that the socio-political implications of the internet are no longer confined solely to being on the network, of course. The network condition pushes itself offline, beyond its own boundaries, and we see evidence of this all around as the map and the territory it refers to entangle and confuse each other. She says, far from being opposites across an unbridgeable chasm, image and world are in many cases just versions of each other. They are not equivalents, however, but deficient, excessive, and uneven in relation to each other. And the gap between them gives way to speculation and intense anxiety. It's this gap that I'd like to tease open and ask, is there also room for pleasure here? As we copy and remix and distribute versions of texts, of images, of our own identities, there can be an uncertain satisfaction in feeling the simultaneity of things, of seeing or making the double, and sensing a difference, but not knowing for sure. Pleasure mixed with anxiety, of course, also points to another quality, that of the uncanny. Oliver Lyric's version videos, that's a still from one of them, explore this queasy condition of indifferent difference between copies, multiples, and versions that pass in and out of each other. He says, an axe that has its handle replaced 5 times, its head replaced 4 times. In the translation, one form passes into another, a profound change, and yet it's the same. He describes it more as a condition than a methodology. He says, same, but different. The multiverse is composed of a quantum superposition of infinitely many, increasingly divergent, non-communicating parallel universes or quantum worlds. An awareness of this multiverse and of our ability as artists and writers to disseminate a notion as an array of possibilities that amplifies and expands along networks is what I've started to refer to as performing publishing. Many printed web works, especially projects that materialize the network, like this one, Clement Bella's self-published postcards from Google Earth, embody or occupy this quantum world's multiverse. The notion, in this case, a weird map, a certain depiction, a geographical place, travels along one network and is output into another, continuing to exist simultaneously in both or more than both places. For the viewer, there's recognition and familiarity. I know what this is, along with uncanny difference, or do I? The difference is detected, but not easily identified. It looks like Google, which looks like something familiar, but it's all wrong. It represents a physical place, right? Something is off. Which one is real? Where did it start? Where is the original? An uncertain or absent original seems to be a common condition now in works that are pushed between networks, as qualities of one state are muddled with aspects of another. Stierl describes the circulating image as becoming bruised as it moves. She says, the bruises of images are its glitches and artifacts, the traces of its rips and transfers. Images are violated, ripped apart, subjected to interrogation and probing. They are stolen, cropped, edited, and reappropriated. They are bought, sold, and leased, manipulated and adulated, reviled and revered. To participate in the image means to take part in all of this. This happens clearly in web-to-print works, I think. I understand that I'm touching something that comes from the network. There are references to the web, the browser window, the grid of images, URLs, the conventions of email or Google or Twitter, the pixelation. This is the familiar vernacular of the web, but something's off. It's tactile, it's too large, it's static. One kind of mobility has been traded in for another. Its thingness, its hexaity, its what it is of the hand is no longer of the network. The fish is out of the water. How did it get here? Is it dead or alive? Where does this work live? Perhaps it's both dead and alive. The work points towards some inability to locate an original, and yet we've found a trace of it, circulating as a notion. Maybe that's all we have. And perhaps the trace isn't just a trace, it looks just like the original. All parts have been replaced. Duchamp played with this state between states early on. His 1917 photograph of Fountain, taken by Alfred Stieglitz, might be the proto-definition of performing publishing. Almost 100 years after the ready-made itself disappeared, I find myself confronting this photograph in a PDF depicted as it was originally published in The Blind Man. This isn't a singular work, though. It's an array of views circulating on the network as thousands of JPEGs and PDFs. Where is the original Fountain? It was dispersed, deliberately so. Duchamp said that the sculpture was simply placed behind a partition, and for the duration of the exhibition, I didn't know where it was. After that, where it physically went remains a mystery. But prior to its famous rejection for exhibition, Duchamp took Fountain to 291 Gallery so that it could be photographed by Stieglitz. Duchamp framed and distributed the image in a particular manner for a public audience. That is, he published it. Seth Price describes this primal scene in his essay Dispersion and says that the fountain does not occupy a single position in space and time. Rather, it is a palimpsest of gestures, presentations, and positions. Duchamp distributed the notion of the fountain. Today, Duchamp's act seems tight and choreographed. We would label these moves, framing, image-making, writing, distribution, as a kind of publishing. In the public dispersion of Fountain as an image notion, Duchamp staged and performed a significant narrative and the way it would be seen, shared, and consumed. Finally, Printed Web, a project that came out of Library of the Printed Web, is my attempt to document performing publishing as well as to enact it. I offer artists and writers who work in a networked context a separate space to create new versions, outside of update cycles, diffused attention, constant refreshes, and endless scrolls. It's an invitation to extend their own performing publishing to the paused space of the printed page. In the second issue of Printed Web, Olia Lealina's Summer is staged in this infra-thin way. Her work, originally created for a web browser, is a self-portrait that is already performative. Every time Summer is loaded online, individual frames of the looping animation are pulled from different servers at locations from around the world. Together, they portray Olia swinging forward and back over a blue to white gradient background. These 18 frames sit on 18 separate servers associated with the websites of Olia's artist friends. Each frame has its own URL that corresponds to the friend's website. So every visit to Summer produces a fresh performance, pulling the frames from her network to deliver the satisfying animation. In Summer, Olia's identity, her portrait, manifests as an apparition on her web, a network constructed by the artist. The URLs are offered up as evidence, like shipping receipts. The self-portrait circulates in public as performing publishing through the close community of her own personal network, again and again. In title and in spirit, I think it's a joyful work. With the help of Dragon Espensheed, I grabbed screenshots of each frame of Summer at the exact proportions of Printed Web's page. While it's possible for the viewer to flip through to get a sense of the animation, Summer for Printed Web is deliberately too large to replicate the smooth looping or the rapid fire of the loading URLs. Not easily thumbed, the illusion is broken. The clunky, not quite right paper version of the piece points to the other one online by embedding a depiction of the browser window itself with bookmarks, URLs, and the vocabulary of Google Chrome. It's unmistakably a browser-based work. But the magazine, the quality of the page, the thin gray line, the texture and thinness of the printout matter in the hand, these are clues that the work is not quite on. Perceptually, I think it vibrates in a lenticular fashion. The indifferent difference between the work as a digital performance and as a printed artifact in the hand is infra-thin, and I think exciting. As a print-on-demand publication, and this is James Bridle from issue number 2, Printed Web in itself enacts the infra-thin condition, pushing itself from one state to another without fully committing. Each issue is conceived, designed, and produced entirely on a screen, and then output as a print-on-demand object. Each issue of Printed Web is an extension of the network itself, and yet somehow not. It's a digital work disguised as printout material. It performs the web offline. Next month, I'll launch multiple versions of Printed Web number 3 at Off-Print London at the Tate Modern. This issue was an open call, and I'm publishing all of the PDF submissions from 147 artists as a free downloadable zip file archive, as a free composed PDF, as multiple print-on-demand versions, and as a series of print-on-demand, see them here, neoprene fabric skins to be wrapped around books. Digital files output in various forms, circulating on multiple networks, occupying many positions. These places where materiality spills off and onto networks reveal current conditions, but also provide a glimpse of something yet to come, some kind of intense, slippery state where hybrid works replicate continuously, translate automatically, and move seamlessly between media, beyond the frames of printed page, web page, or physical space. A never-ending becoming. Brian Droyker has described art's current state as more proto than post-internet, that the proto points to the future, to multiplicity, and to transformative potential. As image and world become increasingly entangled, I expect we'll see more, I hope, we'll see more self-aware proto-spaces like Printed Web, blown open for artists and writers to mix, embed, circulate, and perform publishing to the network. That's it.
Okay, I'm going to try and emulate Paul's very neat setup.
This is a project we got
Okay, so I wasn't sure if anyone would know this comic, so I brought it with. So I'm going to just put them on this chair here, and then if you want to look at them, you can get them. Okay, so today I'm talking about this particular comic, Alyssa Milano's Hacktivist. And also, I'm gesturing more generally at mainstream cultural narratives of the hacker, but because this is a short paper, I'm just talking about the comic, but it's part of a bigger project. When reading the comic Hacktivist and trying to think about the hacker as a kind of superhero character in comic book form, I started reflecting on the ways that popular narratives of the hacker sort of share some of the markings of popular narratives of superheroes. So they are narratives kind of comprising characters of extra knowledge, extra ability, kind of exceptional interpretations of freedom, democracy, and the rights of the individual, sort of in tension with the rights of the collective. So, to clarify, this paper is not trying to say that hackers are superheroes, but I'm thinking about the ways that the kind of hacker-programmer narrative is often framed in terms of a superness, and that cultural narratives of programmers kind of share something with the superhero narrative.